Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is bouncing from this exact area of support as the price is now repeating history in the short term, which we need to pay attention to, while Ethereum is still bouncing around in this sideways price range, while the price of Solana is continuing to play out the short-term bearish divergence. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the weekly Bitcoin price chart, and the super trend indicator is still sitting in the green, indicating a larger bull market. But of course, on this weekly Bitcoin price chart, we still have a major bearish divergence still playing out, still active for the price of Bitcoin. So as I've been saying every day over the last 1 month now on the channel, we're most likely going to see a larger slowdown, lacking bullish momentum, most likely a bit of a pullback or correction in the price of Bitcoin later in August and leading into September, which obviously has been playing out as predicted over the last few weeks. And once again, we're only just beginning September. This will likely continue into September, at least based on this chart right here. And if we're taking a look at this 3-day Bitcoin price chart, currently the momentum in the 3-day Bitcoin MACD is still currently looking more bearish than it is bullish. If we're looking at the histogram, of course, it's still sitting in the red. So obviously that's a bearish signal, as we could see in the past, indicating at least some bearish momentum. Now, with that being said, we're not necessarily seeing the most amount of bearish momentum we've ever seen. It's not like we're, for example, the middle of 2022. We're nowhere near that sort of bearish momentum, but it is worth mentioning that at least for now, the momentum is still looking a bit more bearish than it is bullish, at least for the coming days or weeks, as a likely scenario based on the MACD indicator on the 3-day time frame. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin price chart, we can clearly see that we technically still have a bearish divergence on the daily time frame, as well as that bearish divergence on the weekly time frame. But as always, it's important to understand where there's important support and resistance to watch out for. So of course, right now and over the last few days, we've been running into this exact area of support, the golden pocket area of support, sitting in between around 106.7k to 107.6k. So at roughly 107,000, really in between around 107 to 108,000, roughly around there on the price chart, we have a lot of support for the price of Bitcoin, which once again, we could see over the last few days has been perfectly acting as support with some short-term bounces from that area. But once again, as I've been saying over the last multiple weeks now on the channel, yes, we could see short-term bounces from points of support playing out, maybe short-term bullish divergences, things like that on the smaller time frames, but don't be fooled. Those are just shorter-term moves, as in short-lasted moves that are not necessarily high momentum movements towards the upside, because remember, the momentum on the 3-day time frame is still looking more bearish than it is bullish. And of course, the major bearish divergences technically still active here on the weekly time frame and the daily time frame. So yes, we could potentially see a bit more of a bounce in the immediate short term from this point of support, but don't necessarily expect massive bullish momentum based on this reason alone. And now, if the price of Bitcoin actually breaks below this area of support, so especially if we start breaking below roughly 106,500, in that situation, we may find a small amount of support at around 105,500 based on this low, but below that, the next major target will be sitting at roughly 103,500 based on this Fibonacci level, but obviously the immediate support still sitting at just above 107,000, as we could see. And if we're taking a look at the shorter term on the 4-hour time frame, clearly the short-term trend is technically still bearish. We're still forming lower highs and lower lows, which is by definition a bearish trend. But we can see, especially more recently over the last few days, over the last 1 week, give or take, we've seen some short-term bullish moves as a result of short-term bullish divergences playing out over the last few days, as we can see. And so obviously we saw that recent drop off just a few days ago, and then a slight little lower low actually forming in the price in the candle closes, officially confirming in the candle closes for the price of Bitcoin on the 4-hour time frame, while we were forming higher lows, and now technically confirmed the higher low in place in the 4-hour Bitcoin RSI. And so once again, this is a new bullish divergence, which is technically now confirmed just on the 4-hour time frame. And what happened last time we confirmed a bullish divergence on the 4-hour time frame was we simply saw a short-term bullish relief just for a couple of days or so, and then ultimately continuing the larger bearish divergences on the larger time frames. Because as always, it is important to understand the difference between the different time frames. And so in case you're new to all of this, the small time frames play out much faster in smaller moves, short-term moves that reverse quite quickly, and obviously small moves percentage-wise in the price of Bitcoin, whereas on the larger time frames, these moves take much longer to play out and are larger moves in the price of Bitcoin. And so, for example, it's perfectly normal to see short-term bullish reliefs, even short-term bullish divergences play out on smaller timeframes during perhaps a larger bearish divergence, still ultimately playing out over days, weeks, if not months, in the case of the weekly timeframe here. And so ultimately, based on this information so far, I do expect perhaps now a little bit more of a short-term bullish relief, basically what we saw with the last bullish divergence. But remember, a bullish divergence by itself is not always a trend reversal signal, especially if it's on a small time frame. Obviously, the larger time frames are more important than the small time frames. And so yes, expect a little bit of a relief maybe over the next 1 or 2 days, but just don't be fooled. Obviously, last time we did see a bullish relief, but ultimately saw another dump later on to continue the short-term bearish trend. So those are my expectations in the shorter term as a likely scenario. And as for short-term resistance to watch out for, if we continue a bit more of a short-term bullish relief, in that situation, we could find a bit of short-term resistance around this previous low, flipping into new resistance, which we're already struggling a little bit, as we could see, and that's sitting at around 109,500. So as we get closer towards around 110,000, expect a decent amount of resistance around there. And then of course, above that, we have a key level at around 112,000, expect resistance around there, and a small amount at around 113.3k. Above that, a small amount of resistance at around 114,500 and major resistance at around 117,000. And so those are the key levels to watch out for on the price chart in terms of resistance. And if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map right now, looking at the last 2 weeks worth of price history, we could see just recently, just right now, basically a lot of liquidity building just below the price of Bitcoin, sitting at roughly $107,000 per Bitcoin. So keep that in mind. And we also have some small amounts of liquidity building above the price, still sitting at around 114,000, 116,000, and around 117.6k to 117.8k. But overall, obviously considering all of these other charts, it is quite likely we're going to see just a bit of a bullish relief, a slight little bounce in the short term, as we are obviously bouncing from very important support right here and now technically starting to play out a new bullish divergence on the 4-hour time frame. But maybe in a few days from now, after this plays out, kind of like what we saw back here, it is possible once again we could maybe come back down to take out that lower liquidity, considering at least for now, obviously the momentum is still pointing more in the bearish direction. And if you want to get set up ready to go to take these trading opportunities in the price of Bitcoin or any other crypto, you have to be set up ready to go on a crypto exchange. And personally, I've been taking a lot of my crypto trades over on BTNX, so I'll make sure to leave a link to BTNX below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can claim some major bonuses and enter into a 25,000 USD prize pool, which is only available if you actually use the link below this video to make your BTNX account. So if you want to basically get a bunch of free money here using that link below this video, definitely check it out simply just by trading crypto. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, check it out. Once again, first link below this video. And in case you're wondering, BTNX is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But as always, check your local regulations when it comes to trading crypto. And for whatever reason, if you don't want BTNX as an exchange, there's also Pinex as another exchange out there that I also trade on. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to Pinex below this video. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can also claim some major bonuses. Like for example, if you simply just make an account, it takes about 60 seconds to do this. Make an account, complete KYC, you get a free $50 bonus onto your Pinex account, but that's only if you're using the link below this video. And there's also deposit bonuses here. So for example, if you deposit just $100, you get a $100 bonus, or if you deposit up to $10,000, you get a $1,000 bonus. But once again, all of these bonuses here are only available if you're using that link below this video to make your Pinex account. So once again, if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, definitely check out these exchanges, links below this video. And in case you're wondering, yes, you can access Pinex without KYC as well. But with that being said, taking a look at the Bitcoin dominance on the 3-day time frame, and in the immediate short term, we're starting to see just a slight little bounce in the Bitcoin dominance, perhaps as a result of the fact that the RSI on the 3-day time frame is obviously basically right in oversold territories, brushing against oversold territories. And so obviously we have to keep a close eye on this, because if this continues into more of a bounce in the Bitcoin dominance, ultimately continuing much further towards the upside, if that starts to play out, that could be some really bad news for the altcoin market. So definitely keep a close eye on the Bitcoin dominance. Technically speaking, the larger trend or the larger price structure still currently looking bearish. We've not yet actually confirmed any bullish trend reversal here, but once again, right now with this short-term bounce, it is something to watch out for, because if it continues, once again, not good for altcoins if it continues. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the 3-day time frame, right now Ethereum is still playing out exactly what I've been saying over the last 1 week or so, which is simply choppy sideways price action within this sideways price range, looking relatively neutral in the shorter term, just bouncing around sideways. Obviously, that's exactly what is now playing out as expected and what we've seen over the last 1 week as expected. And this will likely continue to be the case because now we're potentially about to see a slight bullish relief in the Bitcoin price, while the Bitcoin dominance is seeing a slight little bounce, which could be relatively neutral for Ethereum. Whereas a couple of days ago, of course, we were seeing a dump in the Bitcoin price, while we were seeing a dump in the Bitcoin dominance, which was also relatively neutral for the price of Ethereum against the US dollar. And so in other words, if the Bitcoin dominance and the Bitcoin price are kind of just moving in the same direction, so if they're both bullish at the same time and both bearish at the same time, as we've seen over the last 1 week or so, that's going to be very neutral for Ethereum against the US dollar, as we've seen over the last 1 week, just bouncing around pretty much sideways. And so obviously, based on the current situation with this short-term bounce in the Bitcoin dominance and this new bullish divergence in the price of Bitcoin, this sideways price range will likely continue at least over the next few days for Ethereum. And of course, this area of support is still sitting in between around 3.9K to 4.1K. This area of resistance is still sitting in between around 4.8K to 4.9K. And if we're taking a look at this daily Ethereum price chart, technically speaking, this bearish divergence is still active, still influencing the price of ETH, at least in the shorter term, which means we should not be expecting a lot of bullish momentum. But honestly, I mostly expect relatively sideways price action, as I just said many times here in the video and many times over the last 1 week or so. And clearly over the last 1 week, we've seen mostly choppy sideways price action, as we could see right here, because a bearish divergence doesn't always mean a major crash or anything like that. Sometimes it can mean just a slight pullback in the price, sometimes just some choppy sideways price action, but essentially what it tells us is we're losing bullish momentum. We're likely going to be lacking bullish momentum in the coming days. So that is still the situation for Ethereum. Honestly, not much has changed over the last 1 day. And if we're taking a look at the price of Solana on the 2-day time frame, right now Solana is continuing the retest of this very important area on the price chart, still sitting in between around 190 to 200. And so obviously for the bulls out there, it's important we actually hold above this area and bounce again from this area, confirming it as support again, as we saw just a few days ago. Because if we actually fail to hold above this area, and if we start confirming candle closes back below around $190, especially if we fail to get back above that area, in that situation, that'll be the start of new bearish price structure starting to confirm on the 2-day time frame. And so in that situation, once again, if we first confirm a break below 190 and fail to get back above that area, in that situation would likely at least drop down towards 180, but honestly most likely see a retracement all the way back down towards around 167, so close to 170 as a likely price target if we first break below 190 with confirmation. But once again, at least for now, we're still just testing that area, which means there's still a strong possibility we could see yet another bounce from this area, once again, as we saw around half a week ago. And as for the next major points of resistance, of course, we still have this Fibonacci level here, the 78.6% Fibonacci level, still sitting at around $230. But obviously, we should be now expecting resistance around this local high just here if we make it back up there, sitting at roughly $215. And obviously, one of the reasons as to why we're likely seeing this pullback here, just retesting this area of support, is due to the fact that we're still actively playing out this short-term bearish divergence here on the 6-hour Solana price chart, as I've been warning about over the last half a week now on the channel. First of all, obviously back here is when I started warning about this bearish divergence, telling you that we're most likely going to see just a continued slight pullback in the short term, or potentially a bit of choppy sideways price action. And obviously that's pretty much exactly what has played out since then over the last few days. And of course, at least for now, this bearish divergence is technically still active. It's still influencing the price of Solana because we've not yet confirmed any invalidation signal to actually invalidate this bearish divergence, which means potentially over the next couple of days, this could continue to play out similar price action to what we've seen over the last few days. But remember, we're now retesting this area of support, so maybe this continues a little longer, but as we approach this area right here in between around 190 to 200, once again, in that area, expect a decent amount of support for the price of Solana. So maybe this continues for maybe another 1 or 2 days, and then we start to bounce a little bit around this area. Could be a very likely scenario to pay attention to. And of course, definitely pay attention to what the Bitcoin dominance is doing, because as I mentioned earlier, if the Bitcoin dominance continues a major bounce over the next few days, that could be really bad news for the altcoin market and likely cause some breakdowns in the price of Solana and other altcoins if we see a further bounce in the Bitcoin dominance. And if we're taking a look at the price of XRP on the weekly time frame, we're still playing out the massive bearish divergence on the larger time frames here, as I've warned about every day now on the channel for over a month now on the channel. Check pretty much any one of my videos over the last 1 month. You could see me warning about this major bearish divergence since almost all-time highs, telling you we're likely going to see a major pullback later in August and leading into September. And obviously that's exactly what is already starting to play out as predicted, as I warned about. And when I started warning about this major pullback starting near all-time highs around a month ago, I got a lot of negative comments here on the channel telling me I'd be completely wrong about this and telling me that no, XRP is about to hit massive new all-time highs. But obviously we could see now this is indeed starting to play out as I've been warning about, and this could likely continue well into September, because if we're taking a look at the last time we confirmed a massive bearish divergence like this on the weekly XRP price chart, it was back here near the end of 2020 entering into early 2021, between these lower highs in the RSI and higher highs in the price. And what came next was a massive pullback. If we're measuring that move, more than a 60% pullback in the price of XRP over multiple months. And if we're measuring the current pullback from the candle closes to the current price, it's roughly a 20% pullback, or from the actual all-time highs, from the candle wick highs down to the current price, it's only around a 24 to 25% pullback. So still potentially just starting based on what we saw last time. So just keep that in mind. And if we're taking a look at XRP on the daily time frame, obviously XRP has already lost this Fibonacci level acting as support. We've already lost these lows right here, which were acting as support, sitting at around 285. So I'll now expect resistance in this area in between $2.85 to $2.90 if the price actually bounces again. Once again, expect resistance in that area. And as for the next support to watch out for, we still have a small amount of support at roughly 275. But if we continue breaking down here with candle closes below 275, really the next major target to watch out for is this area sitting in between around 255 to 262, based on previous significant resistance now likely acting as new support. And if we're taking a look at this daily XRP price chart, obviously right now we're still forming and potentially getting very close to confirming a breakdown in the price of XRP for this descending triangle pattern, which is indeed a bearish price pattern. Once again, something I've warned about over the last few days or so. And this line of support is still sitting at approximately 275, really based on this low right here. So we still need a bit more confirmation here, actually confirming daily candle closes ideally below $2.75 to start creating a new lower low in the price in the candle closes. And if that starts to happen, if we confirm candle closes below 275, and especially if we fail to get back above that area and start rejecting from that area, in that situation, that'll be extremely bearish price structure, setting up a new bearish price target. And if we're taking a look at that measured move, the technical price target for this descending triangle pattern, if we first see that extra confirmation, which we've not yet seen, that will set up a technical price target at around $2.17, give or take. So from the current price around the point of the breakdown to that price target, that's roughly a 22% move towards the downside with no leverage, or for example, a 10x leverage short position, well over a 200% profit in that example, not financial advice. But once again, before potentially taking any trade right here, I'd first wait for a bit more confirmation, confirming candle closes below this level, and especially some sort of retest. If we fail to get back above that area, there'll be extra confirmation confirming the bearish price target. So once again, still waiting for confirmation. And as always, the point of invalidation would be if we first confirm the break towards the downside, come back up for a retest, and then actually break out back above that area with candle closes back inside the triangle pattern or even above the triangle. In that situation, if we break back above that line right there, after first confirming the break to the downside, that would invalidate the break to the downside and invalidate the pattern and the price target altogether. But obviously at the time of recording this video, we're getting very close to possibly confirming this bearish price pattern and bearish price target, and clearly the larger timeframes still not looking too good for the price of XRP. And if we're taking a look at the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame, it's a somewhat similar situation for Chainlink. Obviously, we're continuing a shorter term pullback, a cool off after all of that crazy bullish price action that we saw a couple of weeks ago. But right now, the price of Chainlink is failing to get back above this area on the price chart in between around $24 to $25. So continue to expect resistance around that area, especially in the higher $24 area, closer towards $25. That's major resistance for the price of Chainlink. And above that, we have very significant resistance at close to $27, as I already warned about here on the channel since before we rejected from around that area. And as of recording this video, we're potentially now starting to break below this short-term point of support here at roughly $23. So if we start confirming further candle closes below $23, especially if we fail to get back above that area, in that situation, we'll likely see a retest down towards roughly $21.40 to $21.50, which could act as a bit of short-term support. And below that, we have a significant area to watch out for in between $20 to $21. And now, technically speaking, the larger price structure, the larger trend, still technically looking bullish, at least as of right now. We've not yet confirmed a trend reversal signal because, at least for now, we're still forming higher lows and higher highs. We're still holding above this very important area in between $20 to $21. Now, as I mentioned many times recently here on the channel, if we start breaking below $20, especially if we fail to get back above that area, there'll be a significant change in price structure to the bearish direction when we're talking about the larger or longer term trend, not just the short term situation. So obviously the short term situation has already been bearish for some time now. We're already cooling off as a result of this bearish divergence I'll talk about in just a moment, but technically the larger price structure still forming higher lows and higher highs, technically still within more of a longer term bullish trend, as we have seen many times short term pullbacks during a larger bullish trend. But of course, one of the major reasons as to why we are seeing this pullback in the shorter term for the price of Chainlink is due to the fact that we're playing out a major bearish divergence on this daily Chainlink price chart, as I also warned about since basically these highs right here when the price was rejecting at roughly $27. Obviously, I warned about this major bearish divergence, and this has already been playing out over the last 1 to 2 weeks, give or take, resulting in a lack in bullish momentum, seeing a lot of weakness in the price of Chainlink. And considering, at least as of right now, we've not invalidated the bearish divergence, it means it's still influencing the price in the shorter term, which means continue to expect it to play out at least in the coming days, maybe longer, maybe another week or so, but at least in the next few days, it's likely the price will continue either a slight pullback, maybe some choppy sideways price action, but overall lacking bullish momentum, showing a lot of weakness, at least in the shorter term. And remember, for really any of these altcoins here, pay attention to what the Bitcoin dominance is doing, because once again, as I said many times, if the Bitcoin dominance continues to bounce, that will not be good news for the altcoin market, at least in the short term, while the Bitcoin dominance would be bouncing. And remember, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, check out the links below this video to those exchanges if you want to claim those massive bonuses that are only available using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can trade crypto no matter what the price is doing, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.